Oh no, I got to get my snot rag ready already. Goodness. It's so funny because I will start the live and I'll be just fine. And by like the middle of the live, I'll be like snotting and my whole nose is stuffed up. And then I'll stand up and it'll go away. I have no idea what's wrong with me, but it's annoying. So, my goodness. How is everybody? Carol finally became a member and got that figured out. So that was cool to see. There is so much going on, you guys. My goodness. So I spent half of yesterday doing a video on Charlie Kirk as well. And I'm like, like, I don't know if I want to put this out yet. And, I still have to edit it and stuff like that. But I kind of decided against it. I don't think I'm going to put out a Charlie Kirk video as of yet. I just feel like, although I'm looking into all that stuff and I'm following every detail, I just don't feel like my heart is in it yet, like it is with Idaho. So I'm going to continue with the Idaho stuff for now. And then if I feel like doing some Charlie Kirk stuff, I will. I feel like there's enough people doing Charlie Kirk stuff that I don't really need to get into it, but my heart just isn't in it like it is with Idaho. And I don't know if that's just because it's been so long, so much time spent on it that my soul is connected to it and trying to figure out the truth. So I'm not going to put out the Charlie Kirk stuff just yet. I might in the future, but right now I'm just not going to. But it is wild. And just like Fizzy said, where's that comment? Where's that comment? Let me find it. Fizzy says, universities be shady. Because it sounds like to me, Fizzy says, I think it was Fizzy. Yes, Fizzy says, watching Candace Owens at the moment, the UVU owns a vacant house near where the pew pew was found and in the direction Tyler walked off to. Sus. Very sus. I mean, I think that people are very clear now that when you get a lot of attention from a, whatever it is, a crime that goes national, right? Everybody knows about it. It does bring money to that area, right? People will send donations. I mean, there's all different ways it brings money to the area. So I think that people obviously know that now and makes it very obvious. Hello, Moto Man. Hello, Liv. Hello, Riding Down the Rabbit Hole. Hi, Ro and Sally. Pokey, of course. Carol, of course. Fizzy, of course. Anybody that's new here, we're just a regular person, just on the internet, talking regular, just like everybody else talks with their family or friends. That's what we do here. So everything is alleged and our opinion only. We'll get that out of the way. I have a couple things for you guys that I want to share today. But since I actually haven't gotten to see Jules's recent post, which I saw the title of it and it seems very interesting. It's very short, so I'm just going to play it for us. Hello, Devil Woman. Hello, hello, hello. Bronxy is feeling better. He is definitely on the mend, and I think that from here on out, he'll be just fine. The medicine that I started giving him is working perfectly, doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The infection is going away, and he is actually seems more playful than he was before. I know you guys don't get to see a lot of that. He's usually sleeping when I'm filming, so but he's been great. He's been doing really, really good. Grandma is doing a little bit better as well. I wasn't going to tell you guys this because I feel like at this point it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but my brother is actually in the hospital now as well. He's 2 years older than me. He was admitted for a strange infection that they couldn't get under control. The doctors still don't know how it got there, what it is, what's going on. And he's been there for like 6 days now. So it's just a lot in 1 week or 2 weeks really for our family. So yes. That is what is going on. It seems like the antibiotics just now are starting to work for my brother, but we have a new member. Welcome. It's so good to see you. So my brother's like what you would think of like a burly construction guy. He's not much can hurt him and things like that. So to have him kind of keeled over and not being able to function and mentally deteriorating, physically deteriorating was rough, I think, for my parents and stuff. He finally went to the hospital and just now is starting to, I think, come around and get a little bit better. It's strange. It's very, very strange. But they say the bad things come in threes. I feel like we've gotten our three bad things in the past week or two. So, but hey, over here, we are okay. We are healthy and good. So yeah, I'm sure your guys' prayers will do just exactly what it did for Grandma in Bronx, and everything got better. So I'm sure my brother will be just fine. Other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm just really curious what everybody is thinking as far now that it's been a week since the Charlie Kirk stuff. I'm curious what you guys are thinking on it. I know that for me, especially now, when mainstream media puts out a story, I instantly think, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? What really happened? And it's sad that it's like that. It's really sad that we have to be like that now. And it's not everything that mainstream media puts out, but when it's a big thing that happens, like IDAHO4 or Charlie Kirk, and they are doing this whole lone suspect and lone gunman and all that, and he was this and he's got mental health and all that stuff, it makes me think like, okay, well, what really happened then? And it's sad it has to be like that. Oh no, writing down the rabbit hole. My brother has stage 4 cancer and now he has an upper respiratory infection. Goodness, if we can all say prayers for writing down the rabbit hole's brother, that would be great as well. I'm thinking some of the prayers worked over here for some of my situation, so we'll send them over to you now. Aw, it's sad. Yes, prayers, friend. Prayers to our friend. Oh, I mean, aw, that makes me sad. It's like a bittersweet type of thing, Pokey. Pokey says Mrs. Kirk named CEO today. It's like bittersweet. It's like, that's great, but at the cost, it's just so sad. It's so, so sad. And with the Charlie Kirk story, I don't know if there's many people out there who think it didn't actually happen, right? I think with this one, we're like, oh no, with that, it definitely happened. It's just probably not how they said that it happened, right? Oh, Motoman, we have a member. Thanks, Moto. I really appreciate you. All right, so we're going to start off by watching Jules's new video. I know I work all day. I'm sure some of you do too. So I don't know if all of you have gotten to see it. I know I have not yet. So I'm just going to play it, and it's pretty short. So let's share it. There it is. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Boom, there we go.
Thing is alleged. Okay, you guys have been following along with these documents for a while now. So you guys know that whenever we came across Supplement 104 in the Moscow police documents, we were really shocked by the way that it made one believe that there was additional camera footage that they had as evidence somewhere that for some reason they hadn't told us about, even though it seemed like it would have been closer to the house. It would have seen more of what was going on directly at the house. It would have had a closer, clearer view of what they have been telling us is suspect vehicle number 1. I also told you guys that I had a viewer named Mikey send me some information about the address in which this camera might be at. So, of course, I did what I try to do every time I have questions like this, and I filed a FOIA. Now, that FOIA has been responded to. Some of you might have seen my community tab post, but this is the full-on information. Now, this first sentence is a little wonky. I guess I should have double-checked it before I sent it off, but I'm going to read this whole thing to you, and I'm going to tell you now, there's no way that they don't know exactly what the hell it is I'm asking for.
So Hi, Jeff H. How are you? Exactly, Ro. That is literally what I was just going to say. Exactly. So we pretty much knew from the beginning that there was some sort of camera there because of the things that Olivia had said and how she said that she saw what time Maddie and Kaylee got home. Exactly. So everybody thought that there was a camera there. Now, in what Jules is saying is that Payne wrote a report saying there is a camera there that saw Molly in the front and that saw, the white Elantra or whatever. But there is a report that Payne wrote that there is a camera. And that's what Jules is asking for.
Okay. It says, I would like the security camera surveillance footage that the camera mentioned in MPD Supplemental 104 regarding the DoorDash delivery driver being seen on camera entering into the parking lot of 1122 King Road. It states, and I quote directly from the report, at the point M, which is Molly the driver, also seen on the 1112 camera walking down the road. That's not a quote from the report. That's my input into this, because in the report it has Molly's name redacted and it just shows an M before the box. So of course I'm going to give some additional information, but the rest of this stuff is quoted. Pulled into the front parking lot before she dropped the order off.
So I believe in an interview, and I could be wrong, but if my memory serves me correctly, when Olivia did an interview, she said she saw them come home. She like saw them, so everybody thought there was a camera. She didn't necessarily say like because of the phone or because of the text message. She said she saw them. We saw them come home at whatever the time was, 1 whatever in the morning. So that's what I got from it. I don't know if she could have been exaggerating or whatever, but from the beginning, most people thought that because Olivia had said that she saw them come home, everybody assumed it was because a neighbor had a camera or they had a camera. And so from the beginning, so many people have been asking, how did Olivia see them come home? And we've never gotten an answer. So it's kind of a big deal that Payne writes in a report that he saw this on a camera angle, because we all assumed from the beginning there was a camera anyways, and we've just never seen the footage of it. And now it seems like everybody's trying to backtrack on the fact that there seemingly was a camera view of that house.
The white Elantra pulled in behind M's vehicle, a gray Subaru Forester.
Hi, Bonnie.
I would like this footage. This footage would have been taken from either of these 4 addresses: 712 Queen, 714 Queen, 716 Queen, 718 Queen, or 720 Queen. This was written by Brett Payne and reviewed by Dustin Blaker. Written on January 10th, 2023 for an interview that took place on 11/23.
Jeff asked, did Ann Taylor ever say anything about this supposed camera? From my recollection, I don't think she did. I don't think she has, which is a good point, meaning, right, you're trying to say that surely if there was a camera, Aunt Taylor would have brought it up. I don't recall Ann Taylor bringing up a camera, which is then crazy, because why would Payne write that in his report then? Like, Payne is the, main guy on the case here, and he's writing that there was a camera in a report that showed this. So it's wild that I don't remember Ann Taylor bringing it up, unless I'm wrong. But then again, why would Payne write it in a report too? So, I mean, I feel what you're saying totally, but I just don't know. Yeah, exactly. That could be part of the evidence that she's still waiting for as well, since she never got all the stuff she was asking for.
2022. Now, again, I didn't put Molly's full name in this, and obviously I'm trying to just guesstimate the address based off of what they're claiming this camera actually picked up. So regardless of the fact that I don't have her full name in here, I'm giving them the supplemental number. They know damn well that they just released 315 actually, if you include the OG narrative of these bad boys to the public. They know damn well what I'm asking for, okay? So this was their response. The City of Moscow received your public records request on August 14th, 2025. The request asked for surveillance footage from either 712, 714, 716, 718, or 712 showing the white Elantra pulling in behind M's vehicle in regard to the Brian Kohberger investigation. Well, actually, it says Brian Kohberger investigation, but whatever. Pursuant to Idaho Code 741032, the city shall either grant or deny a person's request to examine or copy public records, Please be advised that a search of the requested record was conducted and no such records were identified to exist. Therefore, your request is being denied.
What if you could taste the movies?
We turned that idea into an $11.3 million business.
Writing down the rabbit
Wix.
hole, I'm going to respond.
What do you
to
mean?
You really quick. So writing down the rabbit hole asks, Maddie's jacket that was found on the fire hydrant with the weapon in it that the cop put in his trunk and left Maddie's jacket there. Had they ever mentioned what that weapon was? And I'm actually glad you bring this up because, hey, Christina girl, because I know so many people have been, in the past at least, talked about Maddie's jacket and a weapon being found in it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I watched that video over and over and over. And if you watch it really, really close, the cop does not pull anything out of, I have a difference of opinion, I think, than most people on this. The cop does not pull anything out of the pocket of the jacket. What he does is he takes his like radio or whatever's in his hand. I'm pretty sure it's like an old school looking walkie-talkie thing. And he puts it between his legs and is holding it there while he picks up the jacket. He messes with the jacket. He, at the same time that he's throwing the jacket down, he's pulling his radio back out from between his legs where he put it to like hold it. And so people think it looks like a weapon was pulled out of the jacket. And from what I noticed, it's just his radio that he picks back up from between his legs. That I don't think anything was actually found in the jacket. However, I do have a different view on that than I think a lot of people do. I don't think he actually pulled a weapon out of the jacket. I can see if I can find the video again and we can look at it. However, I do think that is Maddie's jacket. And I do think that it was terrible of them to pick it up, touch it, look at it, and throw it back down and just leave it. Even if it wasn't Maddie's jacket, where it was found should have been taken into evidence, right? Just because of the location it was in. It could have been anything. It could have been a perpetrator's jacket. But as far as there being a weapon in the pocket, I personally don't think that that's what it is. Oh, thank you, Moto. Look at you. Moto says, why would they not leak that video or release it to dispel doubt about Brian's guilt? They would have solidified guilt 3 years ago. Not releasing this evidence only makes me question the prosecution's acceptance of the guilty plea. You're absolutely right. If they had that video, right, to show that it was Brian Kohberger's vehicle, right? Because if they have that video, then it would have easily been able to see what vehicle it was. So Payne writes a report saying they have this video evidence. Well, then wouldn't you release it to prove Brian Kohberger's guilty? Like I'm saying what you're saying, right, Moto? You're absolutely right. Why would they not? If Payne is writing a report saying they have this video footage of Molly McMichael in the front and the white Elantra, why would they not then put that out first rather than this grainy video of a car you can't tell what it is? And that's the only video they put out, is this speeding away vehicle that looks white, could be a different color, and nobody can tell if it's an Elantra or not. Why would they put that out rather than this video that Payne says is out there, that they have evidence of it, of the front of the house? It makes no sense. None at all. And to me, the reason they wouldn't put it out is obviously because it's not going to show Brian Kohberger's car. That's why. It's just crazy. Thank you again, Moto. I really appreciate you. Jeff thinks it is an Elantra, that you can tell it's an Elantra. I can't tell at all what car it is, to be honest. And I think a lot of people can't, and that's probably where the disagreement comes from, is a lot of people can't tell what vehicle it is. And then knowing Molly McMichael said the vehicle she saw was tan, and what the driver looked like was obviously the undercover vehicle. So is that white car or light colored vehicle that was driving around making the same route that the undercover vehicle was? It looks to most people like that was just the undercover vehicle rather than a white Elantra. And many people think that they're just saying it's a white Elantra because that's what Brian Koberger drove. Who knows? And I only say who knows because we can't tell what vehicle it was. So it's not set in stone. I personally don't think that that's Brian Koberger's vehicle. And I don't think that many people can tell it's an Elantra. I know Jeff has done video editing and things for like 30 years, so he might be able to view it differently or work the video different to see something that I'm not. But so Jeff is going to school us real quick. Jeff says there's 3 things you can look at to tell that it's an Elantra: the shark fin antenna, the unique shape of the side windows towards the back, and the curve in the side molding. So I do have to say that that shark-like antenna is on a lot of different vehicles. That was something I looked at. As you guys, most of you know, I went out and purchased an Elantra literally because of this case. I don't learn by like looking at things like that. I learn by like seeing it in person, hands on. I need to feel it. I need to see it in person for myself because things look different to me or sound different to me in person rather than like through a video or somebody telling me. So what I did notice is that shark-like antenna is on a lot of different vehicles, and it looks very, very similar. The other things I'll have to look into because obviously I have the vehicle. So I'm gonna look after this. All right, I'm gonna keep playing Jules's video. I do think this is important. Anybody that just came in here, Jules found in a report where Detective Payne or Brett Payne was talking about a camera that could see Molly McMichael in the front. He wrote it in a report that there's a camera where you can see Molly McMichael in the front of the 1122 King Road house. So Jules went and asked, she FOIA'd it. She asked for this video, and now they're saying it doesn't exist. Well, then why would Payne write it in a report if he didn't actually see this footage?
It doesn't exist. This isn't an official report. Even if it's not at one of these addresses, they know from the context what the hell I am asking them to look for. They cannot sit here and keep playing dumb. So this was my response. Pretty much as soon as I got this yesterday, I sent this back. I said, so are you saying what's written in the report is false? Now, I wasn't at the computer at the time I responded back to this. So whenever I got to the computer this morning, this is what I sent to them. I want to be sure that what is being looked for is clear before I go any further. I have attached the supplemental itself directly from the MPD website dedicated to the case. Please see the highlighted portion. And this is the highlighted portion. At the point M, which is Molly, pulled into the front parking lot before she dropped the order off, the white Elantra pulled in behind M's vehicle and talks about it being a gray Subaru Forester, then exited the King Road at approximately 3:58 hours. Molly did not mention seeing the white Elantra behind her at any time. At any time. This is very specific. This is not claiming pulled onto King Road, was going in and out of King and Queen Road. This specifically states pulling into the front parking lot before dropping off the DoorDash. My email goes on to say, your response is telling me that this is a false statement in a document that was written by the officer who was the lead on the case for MPD at the time. If this video is in the possession of another agency, please relay that information. If it was mentioned by your lead investigator in a documented report, there should be a paper trail for it. Brett Payne placing it in this document with such detail would make one believe he saw this footage with his own eyes. If not, that is a bit of an issue, I'd say. Clarification on this would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time. So we're going to see what they do. This is a big deal to me, and it should be a big deal to a lot of people. This portion made one believe that this was where we were finally going to maybe be able to get clarification on what was going on with Xana. In this portion, my brain went to, holy hell, maybe this is the proof of life. Maybe this is where they actually have Xana, and you can tell that it's her opening the door, bending down and grabbing the DoorDash order that was dropped off, and then closing it. Maybe this is where we're going to finally get some answers on Ethan and Xana.
Hi, Bianca.
Let's be honest.
Okay, so that is, to me, that's pretty big news where they're saying that doesn't exist, that camera doesn't exist, which means it's a lie in the report then. So at what point do Payne and Blaker and all these other people that are writing reports dishonestly, what happens then? Because had this gone to court, as far as a trial, what would they do then? So wouldn't Ann Taylor or, whatever else pull up this report and be like, you state here there's a camera, blah, blah, blah. Where's that? What would happen then? Would he get in trouble for false reporting? Another thing I want to say is these days, cars look so similar to each other. I remember back in the day, like, the 80s and the 90s, each car manufacturer, their cars would look different from a different manufacturer's car. The headlights, the tail lights, everything would look so different, right? And now it seems like cars look so similar. Like, I know that they're sister companies, but take, for instance, the Elantra as opposed to the Kia. Each line of vehicle, each class of vehicle looks the exact same, except for one says Kia and one says Hyundai. So, I mean, if you think it's an Elantra, it could also be another vehicle that looks very, very similar. And that's very possible these days because cars look so similar to each other now. And I agree that the vehicle on Ridge Road is not Brian Kohberger's. I don't think that's Brian Kohberger's car at all. I don't know, Moto. Moto says, how can they positively identify that it was Molly in the 1112 footage if Jules's opinion is true? Very good point. How would they even be? Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't know who that was then. That makes a lot of sense. This case, you're right. I mean, this case is just so full of lies. And that's why I don't understand how we even have technically guilters, really. I mean, I know that you can obviously take some of the things they said and make it fit, right? But when you go dig then into the specifics of those things, then it starts to not fit. You start to question things. And I think then that's where you get people like us, where we're not necessarily saying Brian Kohberger is completely innocent. I mean, in a sense we are, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is that the investigation was so terrible, so terrible. And then the reports don't reflect what was actually done in the investigation. And now we're seeing blatant lies in the reports of the investigation. Absolutely. That's a very, very good way to put it. This case is a knot that is forever tangled. I mean, it's like there's no way to untangle this mess now. I mean, we can, but we would have to have cooperation with the things we're asking for in FOIAs. I have to tell you that I have put out so many FOIAs, and the responses that I'm getting is either, number one, it doesn't exist, which how could it not exist if I'm specifically asking for something that you guys said existed to begin with? They'll say it doesn't exist. Number one, that's the first response I get. And then the next response I'll get from a different FOIA is, oh, that this department doesn't handle that. You'd have to ask ISP. And then I go ask ISP and they say this department doesn't handle it. Have to go ask, crime scene investigator. So I go FOIA for that. And then you have to ask that from the lab. And then, so I go do that. And they just put me in a big tangled runaround. And then I never get anything. It's ridiculous. Oh, the Kia, is it a Kia Forte? Yeah, but you know what? Honestly, it's basically the same thing. I think it's just a little bit shorter of a vehicle is the Forte rather than the Optima. But I know what you're saying. Those all look pretty much the same as well. Oh, interesting. Miss Tree. Body cam video shows camera placement on 1122. First responder cop walking towards the house. You can see it. I forgot which channel showed it. I'll have to look at that. That's okay, Bianca. No biggie. No biggie. Okay, so we played Jules' video. Now I want to look at this. And I don't know how long I'll be able to keep this page up here because it shows red fluid. But I made this earlier today. Let me see if I can make it bigger somehow. There we go. That's a little bit better. So I just made this on Canva real quick earlier today. This on the left that you see here is the train incident that happened with the cutie patootie little blonde girl. Her name was Irina, and she was unalived on a train. I'm sure everybody knows, in the Carolinas. After getting off work, she was just going home after getting off work, and this man pulled out a tiny pocket knife and got her 3 times in the neck, and she was unalived on this train. You can see the red fluid on the picture on the left, and that is from her. That is from 3 sharp force injuries to the neck with a pocket knife. Could you imagine had it been 50 with a K-bar? We see more red fluid right here than we do in the pictures of 1122. I know that Maddie and Kaylee were supposedly on the bed, and the bed might have, pulled in some of that fluid. And a lot of the fluid where Xana was blurred, so we don't know exactly how much. But from what they say Ethan's injuries were, I would have expected to see a whole lot more red fluid where he was. And also on Kaylee's pillow, on the wall, just everywhere. I would have expected to see much, much more. Now, as you can see in this picture on the left, this man and this girl that's trying to help Irina, they're stepping in the red fluid everywhere. The picture on the right is the man who did it. Now, again, this was a pocket knife. Do you see the red fluid droplets? That's not from the knife. I mean, it is, but it's not. He wounded his hand. He got 1 cut on his hand and sliced his hand open. And those are the red fluid droplets from his hand. 1 cut to his hand. And that's how much red fluid droplets you get from a cut on your hand from a pocket knife. That looks quite a bit more than what we see in the IDAHO4 case. I feel like just this right here should make many people question the crime scene. Whether it's staged or was cleaned up, it deserves questioning because this was only 3 sharp force injuries with a pocket knife. Could you imagine 30 or 50 and then 4 different victims? Come on. We also had we also had a wound on, I believe, one of the perpetrators' body somewhere. I would assume like a finger or a hand or something, because unknown male DNA is left in red fluid on the handrail and on the knife sheath on the back of it. So they had to have been cut as well somewhere, but from my opinion, it would have to be with the own weapon that they were carrying, which again is super simple to do. I mean, look, this guy got one cut from a freaking pocket knife, and look at what it did and the droplets that it's making all over the place. It's following him all down the train. So I would expect to see something similar, if not even worse, from a K-bar. And this is what we have at the crime scene, and it just doesn't match, in my opinion. It also makes me question, again, how was nobody tracking anything anywhere? How? It's just not possible. So I do want to look at this picture on the right here. I think this was mentioned on Birdie's channel. I think it was Birdie's channel. I'm not sure, but if we see the pillow right here where supposedly Kaylee was, somebody had mentioned, which I thought was great, that if this on the pillow was red fluid coming from Kaylee, it doesn't necessarily show any sort of fight. It looks like two things. It could be two things. It could be she was already on the way to being deceased and it's red fluid being basically aspirated out of her mouth, but she would have to be not moving. Or could this possibly be a wound from a pew-pew, which also would make it so the victim is not moving? Because that red fluid stain looks a little strange to me. If she was fighting, you would see that type of markings in not just in one spot on the pillow, right? It would be in other places as well. Yeah, and some people think that it could be from a pew-pew. And to me, this marking on the pillow looks more like a wound from a pew-pew, or after a pew-pew. You know, you pew-pew somebody and then they fall and then that comes out. But the victim here was definitely not moving when this red fluid stain was made on the pillow. And I did find that really interesting because it started to make me think maybe it was a pew-pew that Kaylee was unalived with, like was stated in the very beginning of this case. I mean, we think of rumors, right? And a lot of things that are rumors, they do stem from some sort of the truth. They just get flip-flopped and passed down and intertwined and words get tangled, right? But they do come from some sort of truth in the very beginning. So what makes me think that this could be more from a pew-pew is because we have to remember what her face was said to have looked like. Hey, Hot Pie. And that Steve G had said her wound on her mouth was striped and it was from a solid object, right? And I've always thought, personally, my opinion is that it was from the butt of a pew-pew. So it's not too far-fetched that this wound could have been a gunshot rather than a knife wound. I'm not saying she didn't have knife wounds, but it makes me also question how competent was Mabbitt, the coroner. I mean, did they even look for a bullet in the victims or the route that a bullet took within the victims? You know, she stated that the wounds weren't like knife wounds. They were gouges. So to me, if I'm thinking gouges, I'm thinking the width is much wider than, a cut. And the length is probably much longer than what you would imagine a stabbing being. It was like a gouge, she said. Well, if a lot of the wounds are like that, how easy would it be for her to overlook the route that a pew-pew would have taken, the bullet would have taken through the body? Could it be covered up with these gouges and she just missed it maybe? I think that's possible. Do they, Moto, are you asking if they dig out the bullets? Sometimes they do, but obviously if Mabit didn't think there was a bullet at all, she wouldn't even be looking for one to dig out. They are. Sorry. Dakota, you're absolutely right. Dakota said, I read the Idaho coroners are elected officials and not medical examiners. You are absolutely right. And that goes for a lot of different states. I know where I live, we have a coroner. In the town I grew up in, we had a coroner. They're all elected officials. And you don't have to have any sort of certification or anything to become elected. I think that there's like training out. Yeah, coroners are absolutely elected. There's like training hours that you take, but they are not a medical doctor. They are an elected person by the people that live in that town. Like, hey, I like this person. They seem to be the librarian, the judge, the dog walker, the mailman. Why can't she be the coroner as well? Oh, Mabit for coroner. There you go. Easy as that. So you are absolutely correct. Oh, okay. So Chris, you're saying that Mabit could have been overwhelmed and missed something like that. I agree. I think that's actually a really good thought process. That's a good comment. I mean, we also don't think like she's never really seen something like this. So was she maybe just really overwhelmed when doing this and didn't even know where to start or end? I mean, I don't know if all the victims looked like they were clearly stabbed. Would I be searching for a bullet or a gunshot wound? I don't know. Good question, Carol. Carol says, did any of the parents see the victims' bodies? And it sounds to me like no, which I don't really understand. It sounds to me like nobody identified Kaylee at all. That's what it sounds like to me. I know that some people have said like her aunt did or something, like, and identified Kaylee's body, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything like that. And that's what I thought too, Devil Woman. I thought they had to be identified. That's what I thought. Because if not, how easy would it be to then fake somebody's unaliving, right? I thought they'd have to be identified by a family member, but it seems like with Kaylee, at least, it doesn't sound like anybody did, in my opinion. I haven't heard that. I know that like her parents, hey, Leslie and Billy, good to see you. Right. Like her, exactly, Hot Pie. Kaylee's parents didn't even get up and drive to Moscow at all. Like that blows my mind. I don't even know what. Okay. So what I did here was I thought of the main points that guilters say, and then the main points that are the reasons why we disagree. And it would kind of be similar, I think, in the courtroom in what the prosecution would use versus what the defense would use as well. So I quickly made about 8 different points on the main things that are questioned in this case and what guilters say, and then what we say back to them in response to their questions. Oh, okay. Dakota says bodies are identified, but not always visually. True. Yeah. Decomposition cases and things like that. Yeah. And those would be dental records, DNA, things like that. So I wonder what they used then in this case to identify them if it wasn't visually. Okay, so the first thing that guilters say is what? The DNA, Brian Kohberger's DNA everywhere. Well, it wasn't everywhere. It was on one item. It was a single source touch DNA on one item that was removable. But we also question the chain of custody and could the DNA have been transferred? We also question if there actually was a sheath found, because Payne says he saw it. However, all the officers before him didn't even see it or record it. And then Payne comes along. He spends time in the room by himself. And then now there's a sheath. But we also aren't given any sort of video proof, even though they wear body cameras. We haven't seen the sheath even in pictures as evidence. I question the chain of custody as well, especially now seeing that Brian Kohberger's car was mixed in the same room with all the other evidence from the house of the victims. The mattress and everything else is wild. So a guilter would say, well, what about the DNA? There was male DNA on the knife sheath, and the knife sheath was found under the victim's body that matches Kohberger's. Also, genetic genealogy led directly to him, making it strong forensic proof, in which we would say we don't even know if there is a knife sheath, number one. Number two, I always say the amount of DNA matters, because it wasn't enough to be a primary contact. It wasn't enough DNA for Brian Kohberger to have touched the sheath himself. The chain of custody, of course. There's also multiple unknown DNA profiles at the scene, which have never been explained, never tested against anything. They took buccal swabs of all these people for what? To not test them against anything? What was the point of even doing that if you weren't going to use any of them? And then, oh, the refrigerator broke. So sad. Also, the weapon itself was never found. Mystery. Well, and you're right. Rose says Kopacka had a big knife collection. Well, and what's interesting, and I'm not even going to go down the Kopacka rabbit hole right now, but what's interesting with Kopacka is when he was unalived, they had laid out his discharge paperwork from the military. His apartment was completely empty. It was like they had his death completely set up to make it look like this, lunatic out of his mind, obviously was discharged and had mental health issues and, didn't even know why he was there to begin with. Like, they made his death look very set up, like it was going to happen. And yeah, he did as well have a knife collection. Okay, so I do want to talk about this, and I've touched on it before, the Mowich angle, which I know Pav is really big on. Excuse me. And I see why. I get it. Trust me, I do. It's just hard for me to think that it was one lone person. If we're saying Kohberger couldn't do it by himself and just one lone person, then I don't think the one lone person angle works for me at all, which means then Mowich couldn't have done it by himself either. I don't know how he would get wounds like that if his victims weren't fighting back with sharp weapons, but I could see if Mowich did it with other people or another person, and that person was trying to unalive the person who did it with him, which would be Mowich, so he couldn't speak on it. That would make sense. That angle could make sense. That could fit. It surely could. I just don't think Mowich did it by himself, I guess is what I'm saying. And the timing of the Mowich stuff fits as well. So the next thing that people argue that our guilters or prosecution would say is the cell phone data. They say his phone was off during the murders, suggesting that he wanted to hide his movements, and that pings show his phone in the victim's neighborhood 12 plus times. And to that, defense or us would say, well, the tower pings only show general areas. They don't show if you're right at the house or inside the house. And turning off his phone is not proof of unaliving. People do that for many reasons. And I want to add here that the Barnyards, whatever their name is, with the Celebrate stuff, they said, well, Brian Kohberger turned off his phone at the exact time the unaliving happened. Do you know what they also said? They also said he had turned off his phone several times before as well. And you know what they said to that? They followed that up with, well, that must mean that he is doing something nefarious on the other times he turned off his phone. Or no, maybe it's just common. That's just something he does. Maybe he just turns off his phone for whatever reason. Maybe he's trying to clean it and doesn't want to accidentally hit stuff on his phone. I don't know. I just made that up. But they said themselves that he turned off his phone regularly. And the night of the unalivings just happened to be one of those times. They skate over that. They skate over the fact that he did it normally. He normally turned off his phone. We don't know why. They tried to insinuate it was nefarious reasons, but it very well could not have been nefarious reasons as well. And they don't say that. They're very biased. Another reason is, they said, well, his pings show that he was in the victim's neighborhood, and we would combat that with prior visits could just be passing by to go to Target or whatever else. Shopping, using the ATM, whatever it is, but he still doesn't connect to the tower that actually services 1122 King Road's house. The guilters will say, oh, what about the vehicle evidence? They say surveillance shows a white Hyundai Elantra circling the neighborhood before and after the unalivings. His car matches the make and model of that as well. And to that, the defense or us, we would say, well, the video footage is basically grainy and it doesn't show the exact make and model of the vehicle. There's many Elantras in that area that could fit the same description. There's many cars in the area that could fit the same description. We would also say that investigators initially searched for a different car altogether. And there's no proof that his car was the one in the footage at the exact time of the crime. There's no proof that it was actually his vehicle. And then guilters will say, well, what about the surviving roommates and their testimony? The roommates saw a tall, masked man with bushy eyebrows, consistent with Kohberger. And they were so scared and in frozen shock, and that's why they didn't call 911. Well, hi, Silent G. Oh, look, now I'm super stuffy. Exactly, Devil Woman. And it's crazy that the kids knew people with a white Elantra, but we'll just ignore that. Yeah, FBI said it was a 2011 to 2012. Their expert said 2011 to 2012. And then And then he said 2011 to 2014 or 2013. And then when he emailed back and forth with them, he said it could be up to a 16, but I'm going to stick with 2011 to 2013. And that's it. He never said like, yeah, it's a 2016 or a 2015 at all. He said it could be, but he's not comfortable with it being or naming it a 2015 or 16. Sorry, I'm like super stuffed right now. So to the surviving roommate testimony, and what guilters will say is, you know, it fits the Kohberger description. It's consistent with Kohberger, and they were so scared that's why they didn't call 911. To which we would say the description is vague, and that description could fit most of the boys or men in that area. Their memory could also be unreliable because of the stress the guilters claim that they were in. 8 hours passed before the 911 call. It's not like they were in fear for 90 seconds or 5 minutes. It was 8 hours, which raises the question about timeline and what really happened inside the house. Yeah, exactly. Bethany became a ghost literally by the next day, by the very next day. She went back to Vegas. Like, that's it. Like, she was done with it then. She was done with it before the cops arrived. Oh, I don't know, Chris. Chris says, didn't one of the girls erase all the data in their phone? I'm not sure. Honestly, I would believe it if they did. I truly would. Okay. And then they would say the forensic crime scene evidence, the knife sheath with the DNA is direct evidence of Brian Kohberger's presence. That's what the guilters or the prosecutions would say. And the unalivings fit a single attacker profile, which we don't believe at all. We would say, well, there's no blood, there's no fingerprints, there's no DNA of Kohberger found anywhere else in the house, not on a stationary object that belongs to the house, just on the removable object that didn't belong in the house, and only had less than a secondary transfer amount of DNA on it. The weapon was not recovered. Unaliving 4 people with a knife would realistically leave far more forensic trace on the attacker, right? Like, you would definitely then go sit in your car and it would be everywhere. A person cannot clean their vehicle of DNA. It's just not possible, right? The DNA would melt into the threads of the threading on the seats. And I mean, just places you would never even think to clean. Even if you tried to clean them all, you're still going to find DNA of the victims when it looks like that, right? And then they say, well, FBI and law enforcement conducted a thorough investigation leading to Kohberger. And the affidavit they present is a clear, open and shut case. Well, we say the affidavit overstates the claims. They make the cell tower stuff sound like it fits when it doesn't. The way they word it is not even correct. It's misleading. The vehicle ID reliability is very questionable. Nobody can tell what kind of vehicle that is. And even like we just said, the person who was their expert still said it was a 2011 to 2013. We also know that the cop's vehicle was the undercover vehicle, was in that area doing that same loop. And Molly McMichael said she saw it and it was the undercover vehicle. And then the sealed documents and the gag orders limit transparency. There was no transparency. Well, now we know why there was no transparency, because they're lying about what's in the report. They're lying in the reports that they make. They're falsifying reports, obviously, which Jules just proved. I mean, I think we had proof of that before, but that is what Jules proved today is very clear-cut lies, right? Guilters will say that Kohberger's the only identified suspect and that no other DNA matches and there's no other vehicle links. And then we would just come back and say, there's so much unexplained, unknown DNA samples that exist. They just never tested them. And then we go to like practical, logical stuff. The Guilters say that Brian Kohberger was a skilled criminology student that could execute this attack. And the timing of the car movements fits under the time frame that they're saying that Brian Kohberger's car was there. And we say, well, how could he unalive 4 people with a knife without injury or any major noises? And how did he leave without any red fluid trail or being seen by anybody, without any trail in his car or anything like that? There's no direct witness identification, even though Dylan supposedly saw his face and could not even connect the real Brian Kohberger with the face that she saw in her house that night. There's just so much stuff. Like, I just wanted to put down the main stuff of what Guilters ask or say and how easy it is to disprove them quickly with just a couple of words. I mean, this didn't take me that long to put together. It was fairly simple. Probably 20 minutes I spent typing all this out. Like, it's really easy to dispel what the Guilters think or say with just a couple of words or a quick sentence or two. And so that's when I question, how do we have Guilters anyways? And I can't just say that it's because they don't look into the documentation or the evidence, because I think Jeff is a clear example where he is a Guilter and he has looked into all the documentation and the evidence. He just believes what's being said by the prosecution. So I think that, I guess it goes both ways. I personally just don't see how anybody could land on being a Guilter after you have all the evidence that we have, after we dig into it so deeply. Yeah, you're right, Devil Woman. So Devil Woman says, Dylan said she only saw his eyes and nose because it's an open mask. And then she says it only exposed his eyes. So in one statement, she says she saw the skin around his eyes in the eye mask holes, right? Like a regular ski mask, eye mask holes. And that's how she knew he was Caucasian. But in another statement, she says only his forehead and chin was covered. Well, then that's not a ski mask with holes. She's describing 2 different masks. That doesn't make sense to me at all. She literally describes 2 completely different masks. One is like a poo shiesty type mask or a balaclava. The other one is the ski mask with the holes. She describes seeing both of them. And I don't know how people don't see that and question it more. Exactly. 2 different styles of masks. How? How is that possible? Either it covered just his forehead and chin and you saw everything in between, or the mask had holes and you couldn't see the middle of his face. Which one is it? It's really that simple. Nail her down. Which one is it? And that's what I'm so angry about is, I've said this from the beginning. If these were 2 males in the house and one was seen carrying a knife around the house while the police arrive, they would have been arrested. If these were males and red fluid evidence was found on one of those males' blankets and jackets in their room, that male would be arrested. They would be, at the very least, would be interrogated relentlessly. Why was that never done with these roommates? Why? Because even in the simple statements that they give, which are, I mean, simple is an understatement. I mean, Bethany was even allowed to say, I don't know, 9 different times in her questioning. And that was just an acceptable answer. I really, really wish we could go back in time and we could get questions answered with detail from both roommates. The fact that that wasn't even done is ridiculous. Even after finding things in Dylan's room that had red fluid on it, that were her items in her room with red fluid on it, how would you not go back and question her then? She wasn't even questioned again after that. She was completely left alone. Wouldn't you think you would ask her, like, well, how did this blanket get red fluid on it? Nope. Nope. I don't know. This case will drive you nuts, man. There's 1,000 things to talk about in an hour. In which footage? Writing down the rabbit hole. Writing down the rabbit hole says you can hear someone tell Bethany to sit down in the footage. Is it the Linda Lane footage? I wish we could, on this channel, I would love to go back and listen to some of the Linda Lane footage and stuff. I just think it's hard to hear. We can try it. My next live, we can try listening to stuff. I just feel like it's a lot harder to hear on a live, but we can definitely do it. Yep. They'd lock up Murphy before holding the roommates accountable for their stories and lies. They literally did that. They sent Murphy to the dang pound and put him in a cage. They sent Murphy to jail. And then let the roommates just say, I don't know. And then make contradicting statements. Outcast does have the best audio. You are right, Bianca, and we will definitely be using his audio as well when we do that. I think, I get your point there. Writing down, Devil Woman says, I like to watch the footages, but then they say they're all fake, so I don't even trust anything now. You have to use some discretion, really. I think some things are easier to point out than others that it's fake, but I guess everything has its ups and downs as far as being able to spot the fakeness easier or not. It's hard though sometimes, for sure. I think you can definitely tell when the audio is altered to say something that's not actually being said. I heard that too. Did anybody else hear that that Dylan called Kaylee because Murphy was missing that night? I have heard that. I just don't know if that's true or not. That would be one of the greatest days ever. I think that for every person who donated to Dylan's GoFundMe, each donation, she should have had to answer a question. I don't know. I still think that the amount of red fluid on the train with the Irina situation and the amount of fluid that comes off the guy's hand just from one wound of a freaking pocket knife shows a whole heck of a lot more red fluid than what we see in IDAHO4. And that's really, really questionable to me. Yeah. Victim blaming. That is so annoying to me. Nobody is blaming a victim. Nobody is saying that Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, or Maddie did anything wrong. Those are the victims. And they deserve peace, and they deserve questions to be answered. They deserve to be able to rest. And I feel that people can't rest until the truth is known. And we don't have the truth. And those are the victims. I don't count Bethany and Dylan as victims. I don't count them as survivors. I I say that I'm so glad they were not my friends. That's what I say. Because they are crappy people and they are crappy friends, period. I've spent a lot of time like holding back what I really think because, you know, I'm on the internet. I don't want to be doxxed. I don't want to be like shamed for my opinion, but I'm to the point with this case where I'm like, I don't care. Those are crappy people. You literally thought that your friend and a roommate was laying on the floor, passed out or unconscious because of alcohol. You looked at her more than once, and then you tell the world that you walked away from her and let her lay there for 8 hours. What if, here's my question, what if this situation hadn't happened, right? And Xana was laying on the floor and she was, her body was starting to become deceased. She wasn't yet though, right? Let's say Xana's laying on the floor and because of alcohol, she is dying, right? And Dylan sees her twice and decides to go down and hang out with Bethany and then not call 911 for 8 hours. And in that time, Xana actually ends up passing away. But had Dylan called 911 or helped her when she saw her the first 2 times, would she be charged with red rum? I don't think she would have been. And at that time, it would have been her responsibility. She should be charged with red rum, but I don't think they would have. I don't think they would have. Yeah, failure to render aid. That's what it should have been in this case, though. Like, I know that what happened to them, they wouldn't have been able to be saved. As far as doctors say, right? They wouldn't have been able to be saved. But part of me still thinks like, but how do we know that? Because they weren't given a chance. What if Dylan had called 911 right when she saw the masked intruder in her house? Would this be a different story? Would we see a whole lot more red fluid at the crime scene? Would we have all these reports that are have lies in them or saying that I saw this on a camera, but the camera doesn't exist? What? From the lead investigator? It's wild. I mean, I like to think that there was potential for maybe not all of them, but maybe some of them, maybe one of them to be saved had Dylan called 911 when she saw the masked intruder. It's possible, but we'll never know that. Every time I say that, Carol, I feel like you read my brain. Carol says, but was there a masked man, or is that just part of the narrative? I think that too. Every time I say this masked intruder, I'm like, we know it wasn't one person. I feel like both Dylan and Bethany, if it was actually Brian Koberger that did this, I feel like they would have spoken out when he was either arrested or sentenced, right? Because they know then that the person who did this is caught and it's over. But I feel like they're not speaking out because they know who did this and they know they have to remain silent or they will be next. If Dylan describes literally 2 different masks, I mean, how could you get that confused? If she's describing 2 different masks, it makes me think that there was nobody with a mask. She can't even keep her mask explanation straight. I don't know. So Mandy says, do you think Bethany and Dylan cleaned up or just one of them? I'm not sure. I think that what I think is both of them. What was that? A fly or something landed on me. I think both of them knew. I think Bethany did hear stuff upstairs, but then I think she went up there and maybe walked in on what was happening. And I think it was other people, but Dylan already knew. Dylan was already trying to clean up and do whatever she could. And because Bethany then saw, then she kind of became part of it. Whether she actually helped clean up or not, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure she saw and knew, and that's why she's basically in hiding. I think the noises that Bethany was hearing was possibly Dylan or others already cleaning up. Because I sure don't think that people being unalived sounds the same as somebody making food in the kitchen. I can tell you that. Yep. Oh, wow, Fizzy. Fizzy says that Hippler told the state they needed to present their final and best offer by July. I still just don't see how a jury would have found him guilty. It had to be a plea deal to continue to hold Brian Kohberger, because there's no way a jury would have found him guilty. There's just no way, in my opinion. Yeah, I for sure think that both of the girls knew. But that's also why they're not coming forward, right? Because they know who did it, and it's, or was even part of the cleanup or whatever. And that's why they're not coming forward, because they're scared. At the very least, they knew. At the very least. I thought of that too. That maybe it was one of the girls. I had a dream that it was, I'll tell you about my dream. My dream was that it was Dylan, her boyfriend, and some of their friends. And they did it because of other reasons, whatever it was, because of whatever. And they just didn't like them at all. But they did that. It was Dylan, her boyfriend, and some of their friends. It had been like kind of planned or talked about between them. And Bethany walked in on it. And that's why Bethany became like culpable or part of it. That was my dream. So I don't know. Show me your mops. Yep. Quiet ones need watching. I know we've all heard that saying, like, it's the quiet ones you need to watch out for. And I do think that Bethany was overlooked quite a bit. I really do. I think so many people focused on Dylan. And that's why I made that real quick episode yesterday, was because I was like, everybody talks about Dylan and, you know, how she was involved and whatever. But it seems like we've looked into Bethany the least. But some of the things that she said was really telling. Like when she said, it kind of seemed like it came down there. Well, how would you know that if you were in your room with the door shut, half asleep? How would you know that that spark came from upstairs? You wouldn't know that. You would just think that it was a spark that happened on the first floor because you saw it through your door crack. That's weird to me. I think she walked up the stairs as well. I do. Yeah, why did she do that? She lied about the location of her bedroom to, I think it was either 2 or 3 times. I thought it was 3 times. It might have just been 2. there's a fruit fly in here. I got one of those yellow watermelons. I haven't tried it yet, though. I've heard that too, Carol. Carol says, I've heard the theory that it was a female that was the one attacking Xana, hence the 50-plus wounds, whereas Xana could probably fight back for, to a female rather than a male. And that the person who said, it's okay, I'm going to help you, when they said it like that, it was to the female that was attacking Xana rather than somebody crying in the bathroom. Did they actually search Bethany's room? I mean, did they search? Like, did they test things and stuff like that? I mean, what even made them test Dylan's blanket and jacket? Or was it just that visible? I'm glad you mentioned that. The operator who took the call must have been so confused. What irritates me about the operator, I understand she probably gets a million calls from drunk college students all night long. I get it. But when the person on the phone went to say, well, pretty much at 4 a.m., and then the operator disconnects her or says, stops her from talking and says, okay, I don't need to know what happens at 4 a.m. What's going on right now. I get it. I get that she needs to know what's taking place right now. But I wish she would have let her tell whatever she was going to tell, number one, because I'm nosy and I want to know. But number two is because what if at 4 a.m., the roommate was going to say that she watched Xana take rugs? That would be pretty important to what's going on right now as well. That's why I wish she would have let her finish and say that, because I think that even just like the dispatcher thought that it was just an unconscious person because of alcohol, it would be important to know if at 4 a.m. Xana had taken rugs or had eaten something that she shouldn't have eaten and maybe mixed it with alcohol. And you know what I mean? It could have been anything that was making her unconscious on the floor. Yeah, I think several people think that some of the wounds to Kaylee look like a jealous, raging female was making the wounds. What type of male stabs a female in the top of the head? That's weird. Why? I was just hoping, yes, I think you're right, but I was just hoping even just for one extra word in there, or just anything that we can dig into, what if she had said, well, pretty much at 4 a.m., I saw a guy wearing navy. He looked like he was wearing really dark, maybe navy. And you know what I'm saying? Even if she would have just slipped on her story by repeating it one more time, that's what I wanted. Because I like to see if she's going to slip on what she said previously. Oh, yeah. They went, both Dylan and Bethany got lawyers. Bethany hired a criminal defense attorney in Reno the very next day, and he's the best of the best criminal defense attorneys in Reno. Why would you need to hire a criminal defense attorney the very next day if you did nothing wrong? I mean, a normal person, I feel like if that was me, I would hire an attorney. I just don't think it would be the very next day. I think I would have to start to realize oh, wait, people think I had something to do with it. Oh, I'm going to hire an attorney then. But it would be days at least later, if not weeks. Yep, they sure were. They sure were wearing masks in previous posts. You know that photo of it's a girl in a pink ski mask and then somebody next to her in a black ski mask? I think Bethany's in the pink ski mask and Dylan is in the other ski mask next to her. That's who I think it is. People seem to think Dylan is the one in the pink. I think it's Bethany and Dylan. Yeah, she definitely thought she was in trouble for sure. Her very first words out of her mouth were, "Am I going to be able to go home for Thanksgiving?" Well, what did you do wrong to where you think you wouldn't be able to? Because people don't get arrested for things they don't do. So what did you do? That's what I would have said as the officer. Well, what'd you do? Oh, absolutely consciousness of guilt. Absolutely. I think a lot of her statements are, but I think a lot of people don't see it that way, right? They don't look into it like she's saying it from a guilty mentality, right? They look at it from being a roommate that was or was not awake and could hear things in her room. And I don't hear her statements like that. I hear her statements as her being guilty to something. And she's trying to explain why she's not guilty, which then makes her guilty. All right, guys, I'm going to take Bronxy to the park. I will be on either tomorrow or Saturday for a live, but as you guys know, either way, I'll put up a pre-recorded tomorrow if I don't. I think the bad family luck lately is starting to be a thing of the past now. I think everybody seems to be getting a little bit better as the days go on. So I shouldn't have any reason to be missing days or anything. So every day, either you should either get a pre-recorded video or a live. I try to do every other day a live and then every other day a pre-recorded video. But so I might be on tomorrow. It might be Saturday. But either way, I will see you soon. Thank you, mods, so much for being here. Thank you for all the new people. And of course, all of our OGs coming to hang out with me. Do something nice for yourself. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your animals. I appreciate all of you very, very, very much. And thank you so much to Motoman, and to our new members. I appreciate all of you very, very much. Have a wonderful night and be safe. Bye, guys.